You know, right now, a power struggle of truly epic proportions is unfolding. And it's a quiet war. It's not being fought with armies or tanks, but with algorithms, with digital currencies. And it's all part of a plan, decades in the making, to challenge the very foundation of the world's economic order.
And this is why we're hearing again from Chinese leader Xi Jinping this desire to build a, quote, powerful currency. It's an open challenge to the US dollar. All this in line with that greater dream and vision of turning the renminbi into a global reserve currency. Xi Jinping says this, quote, China should have a powerful currency widely used in international trade, investment, and foreign exchange markets, holding the status of a global reserve currency, unquote. And the timing of this publication, of course, is very interesting. It comes on the back of US dollar weakness. In fact, the US dollar hit that 4-year low last week, and the renminbi is gaining ground. In fact, right now, it's the world's second largest trade finance currency.
You see, for decades, really since the end of World War II, just one system has controlled how money moves around the globe. It's an entire architecture built around a single currency, the US dollar. And that gives one nation, the United States, just immense influence over the very arteries of global commerce. But now, that dominance, it's facing its biggest challenge yet. So listen to this quote. It's from a researcher who's actually affiliated with China's own central bank. This isn't just some casual observation, it's a direct statement of what they see as a threat. It lays out this pattern that Beijing believes is happening: trade frictions, then a tech blockade, and finally, financial sanctions. Basically, they see finance as the ultimate weapon. And what do you do when you feel you're being cornered? Well, you start building your own way out. So, think about this. What if the goal wasn't just to, play by the existing rules? What if the goal was to build an entirely parallel universe for global finance? A completely new set of rails, powered by brand new technology, and designed from the ground up to be totally immune to the pressures of the old system. Well, let me tell you, that is not a hypothetical question anymore. It's literally happening as we speak. Okay, to really get what's going on here, we've got to break it down. First, we'll look at the system China's up against, what we're calling the dollar's fortress. Then we'll dig into China's own blueprint for financial independence. After that, we'll check out the amazing tech they're using, face the big contradiction at the heart of their plan. And finally, we'll ask, what does all this mean for the future of money? All right, first up, the dollar's fortress. To really get the challenger, you have to understand the champion first. We're talking about a financial system that is so dominant, so deeply wired into the global economy, that for years and years, people thought it was basically invincible. This is the fortress that China is now trying to engineer a way around. So let's think about global finance like it's a giant railway system. Pretty much all the world's money travels on tracks laid by two key players. You've got SWIFT, that's kind of like the global signal box, telling all the money trains where to go. And then you have CHIPS, which is like the grand central station for clearing almost all large dollar payments. The thing is, together, they handle over 90% of global payments, and they are fundamentally tied to the US financial system. China's alternatives, CIPS, well, it's like they're laying a brand new track right alongside the old one. It's way smaller for now, sure, but it's being built for one single reason: independence. And make no mistake, this isn't just about making things more efficient or creating a bit of competition. A quote like this, it captures a really deep-seated grievance. From Beijing's point of view, the dollar isn't just some neutral currency. No, they see it as a tool of power, a tool of hegemony. A system that lets the US push its own monetary policy, and when it feels like it, its political will, onto the rest of the world. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. This control can be, and absolutely has been, weaponized. Because the US sits right at the center of this whole system, it can basically just flip a switch and cut entire countries or companies off from global finance. I mean, the freezing of Russia's central bank reserves in 2022, that was a seismic event. For China, it was like watching their worst nightmare play out. It was the ultimate proof that their own huge stash of US dollars could, one day, be turned against them. So, how do you respond to a threat that big? Well, not with just one policy. You respond with a massive, multi-decade blueprint, all designed to achieve one single, overarching goal. And that goal is called financial self-reliance. Now, it sounds simple, but trust me, it is incredibly ambitious. The core idea is to create a kind of closed loop. Imagine this. China wants to buy oil from the Middle East, minerals from Africa, tech from Asia, and pay for every single bit of it in its own currency, the renminbi, using its own payment systems. If they can pull that off, it would effectively shield their economy from any US sanctions or financial pressure. And this isn't some new idea. This whole project kicked off way back in 2009. The first stage was all about just laying the basic plumbing. But then came stage 2, and that was a huge reality check. Beijing realized a lot of the early international use of their currency, the yuan, wasn't for real trade, it was just financial speculation. So since about 2017, we've been in stage 3. And this stage is all about creating real demand, giving foreigners actual reasons to want to use the yuan. Now, it's really crucial to get this next part, at least what they say publicly. Beijing's goal isn't to kill the dollar. What they say they want is a multipolar financial world. A world with more options. A world where their currency, the renminbi, can be the main player in its own region. Existing alongside the dollar and the euro. It's really all about creating choices, and by doing that, they weaken the power of any one single currency. Okay, so we've got the blueprint, but how do you actually build this thing? The answer? Well, it's not just about policies and regulations. It's about technology. Specifically, it's about a national push into digital currency that is just on a scale we haven't seen anywhere else on Earth. $2.3 trillion. Just let that number sink in. That is the absolutely staggering cumulative transaction value of China's digital yuan, the ECNY. This is no small-scale experiment, folks. This is the largest live central bank digital currency project on the entire planet, and it's not even close. The growth has been nothing short of explosive. But this isn't just for use inside China. Oh no, it has a massive international piece to it. Let me introduce you to Project M-Bridge. It's this collaborative platform that connects the central banks of China, Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE, and now Saudi Arabia has joined too. What it does is let these countries trade directly with each other, totally bypassing the old, slow, dollar-based banking system. And just look at that growth on the chart. From 22 million in the early days to over 55 billion? It's a 25-fold increase. It's insane. But here's the really interesting part. Even though M-Bridge is supposed to be this platform for a bunch of different countries, one currency just completely dominates it. The digital yuan makes up over 95% of every single transaction. So, what does that really mean? It means a system that was designed for everybody is, in reality, becoming a superhighway for the digital renminbi. And it's especially being used for big-ticket items like energy deals with places like the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Alright, so you've got this grand design, right? This huge technological and strategic push. It honestly seems unstoppable. But it's about to run headfirst into a massive internal problem, a fundamental paradox that's baked into the very economic model that made China a superpower to begin with. Okay, look at this number, $1.2 trillion. That's China's projected trade surplus for 2025. To put that in perspective, it's the largest surplus any country has ever recorded as a share of the global economy. It just means China sells way more stuff to the world than it buys. And this massive export machine, well, it's the engine of their growth, but it's also the source of their single biggest dilemma. Okay, you really need to look closely at this table because it basically explains the entire problem. On one hand, China wants a global reserve currency. To get that, you need a strong currency that gains value, and you need open markets so people can move their money in and out easily. But, and this is a huge but, China's entire economic model relies on exports, which needs a weaker currency to keep their goods cheap for the rest of the world. On top of that, the government's need for control and stability means they want tight capital controls, not open markets. You see the problem? These goals are in complete conflict with each other. And the data shows this isn't just a theoretical problem, it's real. Even while China is talking a big game about building a powerful currency, its real effective exchange rate, which is just a fancy way of measuring its true trade strength, has actually fallen by 17% in the last few years. What that tells you is that when push comes to shove, keeping that export machine running wins out over the dream of having a powerful global currency. So, with this massive tension at its core, where does this all leave us? Well, China might not be able to just replace the dollar completely. But maybe that was never the only goal. What we're actually watching right now in real time is something else. The deliberate, careful construction of a parallel financial system. A whole new world order is taking shape. The end game here seems to be creating what you could call a dual rails system. Rail number 1 is all about insulation. It's about creating a non-weaponized channel so China and its friends can trade without worrying about sanctions. Rail node 2 is about regional power, making the yuan the main currency for its neighbors and its big infrastructure partners. And then there's the third rail, kind of the holy grail of this whole plan, to start pricing major global commodities, like oil, in yuan instead of dollars. That's the whole petro-yuan idea you might have heard about. And this right here is the final crucial thing you need to take away from all this. This isn't a theoretical debate anymore. It's not some distant future possibility. The digital infrastructure, it's live. The payment systems, they're scaling up. The deals are being signed. So the question isn't if this new system will be used. The real questions are now, how fast is it going to grow? Who else is going to sign up? And what does a world with two competing financial operating systems even look like? So from the weaponization of the dollar to the rise of the digital yuan, you can see that the tectonic plates of global finance are definitely shifting. And what happens next? Well, that's going to define the economic world for decades to come. Thanks for joining us for this Explainer, where we distill complexity so you can gain clarity.